At it. We're delighted to welcome today to be our presenter, Karen Brunssen. I hope you've taken a moment to check the link that we supplied regarding her biography, because it's a wonderfully long one. Uh, Karen has distinguished herself both as a performer, as a teacher, and certainly as someone who is bringing forward the pedagogy of the voice in a very, very important and meaningful way. She was the president of the National Association of Singing Teachers, and many other institutions as well. She has been an adjudicator to various competitions, both here and abroad. She has done teaching residences at Cambridge University and taught in Switzerland and Italy, and you name it, she's been there. Her solo work has been with various opera companies in this country and abroad. There are recordings. Many of her students have also gone on to distinguish themselves. Presently, she is on the faculty at Northwestern University, where I know she keeps everybody very busy. I came upon Karen a few years ago. It was in September of 2021, where she did an online presentation for the American Choral Directors Association. I still have my notes, Karen. Here they are. Okay. I took voluminous notes that day because Karen's understanding of what we experience as we age and how it affects what we can do with the voice was really revelatory for me. And since I work in the arena of community choruses, where we work with a wide-ranging age group, this was tremendously helpful to me. It made me use my ears and my eyes very differently when I work with my singers, hopefully to a better end. So I am delighted that Karen was able to make time for us today to make a similar presentation and to help you all find a way to continue to use your voice safely, comfortably, and happily as you continue to sing through the entirety of your lives. So without further ado, Karen, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Marina. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I can't believe how many people have signed up for this. So it's going to be something that each of you can take personally, but you can also take it looking overall, everybody. And it's about the aging voice. And so I'm going to share my screen, and that's kind of where we'll be for the duration of this presentation. And I'll explain everything we're going to do. So Jeremy, you're going to make sure that I do this right. Okay, so I'm sharing. Okay, I did that. Now I'm going to make that a full screen. How am I doing so far? And then I'm going to get my notes up. Speaker notes. There's my speaker notes. So Jeremy, are they seeing the full screen? Yeah, okay, great. So away we go. So I'm Karen Brunssen. I just celebrated my 70th birthday. I can't believe I'm 70 years old. That was a milestone. And just a few little things. And I lost my husband in March. He had a brain tumor that is always a difficult thing. He wanted me to forge forward, and he was a high school choral director. We both went to Luther College, and that's where we met. And I have always loved teaching voice. I even taught voice to my boyfriends in high school, and then continued doing that in college and ended up marrying one of them. And so my husband and I, we were married for 47 years. He had had a wonderful 15-year retirement since he could retire so early. And so, of course, with that, I saw all his musicals, all his concerts. We had a son who's now 41 and has moved in with me now. And he's just a joy to have here. And so I've watched his voice grow and mature through life, too. So now I'm going to show you the next slide. This is the book that I wrote. And this explains how the voice changes from even before birth to through old age. And it changes constantly. At every age, vocal function is dependent upon how the body is progressively and constantly changing. So this isn't something, we didn't just start changing as we got older and we were experienced and old enough to realize that, whoa, things have changed. They've been changing constantly. On a daily basis, they change. Growth and development changes directly impact our singing voices. And a deeper understanding of the chronological development really does offer a lifetime perspective for optimal and realistic potential at every age. So as we're getting older, here are some of the things that change for us. So you can see in each of these boxes, it lists something interesting that has changed. And so for instance, here on the left, we don't get as much oxygen as we used to, and I'll explain that through this. So we take more breaths. We've lost some of our muscle strength, and by the time we're 80, we've lost about 30%. So our challenge in supporting, which uses the muscles around the support muscles, that's going to be a challenge. Our vagus nerve gets slower. That's going to be a cool slide when you see that. But it does challenge our coloratura and the vibrato rate. Our lungs and our bronchial function diminishes about 40% from the ages of 40 to 80. Our lungs, it takes longer to take a breath because the lungs take a longer time to recoil. We're going to need more time to take a breath too. So these quick breaths that we used to take, we need a little more time. We have hearing loss, or tinnitus has set in, and that infects our internal perspective of our sound and our external perspective of sound. And so what we have to do is just concentrate more. Then also we notice that we don't have the range that we used to. Perhaps our voice used to be really low and it's actually gone higher, or it might have been higher and it's gone lower. Mine was the higher that went lower, and our vibrato's a little slower. There's not quite as much color in our sound. Well, we have to be mindful with our efforts, and I'm going to give you exercises to encourage all of these. And our memory is affected by the loss of neurons. And so, for instance, when we could remember music by heart and no problem and learn it really quickly, well, nowadays, I'm better off if I have some music in front of me and I'm looking at it. I can still read all that. We have less water content in us. In newborns, you're about 80% water, and as adults, we're about 60%. So one thing you might need to do is drink a little more water. And our reflexes are slower, so we do have to concentrate, and we have to challenge them and encourage them. And one of the reflexes is the vibrato, which is really interesting. It's harder to stand, it's harder to see. It's all of these things are taking place. And guess what? They are all normal. That doesn't mean they're good or make life easier, but they are normal. And this is kind of the population this particular presentation is talking to. I did a presentation with a group here in Chicago, and it ended up being about 250 people over the age of 50. And then there was also a children's choir, and there was a high school choir and a college choir and a young group choir. Well, something that we have now that we're older, which I can say myself, is I have more time. I have lots of talent. I've had a lot of experience. I'm interested. I want to be around people. I need to be engaged with people. I want to keep learning. I'm a lifelong learner. And I need the mental, emotional, and physical activities for myself and for my health. And musicians, it's amazing, have all of these systems in their bodies. We all do. Every person does. And so we have our muscles, we have our reproductive system, our circulatory system, our digestive system, urinary, endocrine, lymphatic, which is like your tonsils and adenoids, respiratory, your nervous system, and your skeletal system. And they all change. So here's our plan for today. We're going to start out talking a little bit about hormones. Then I'm going to show you some really wild pictures of how muscles are innervated and encouraged. Therefore, they get the message that you guys need to contract. And that's going to be through the vagus nerve that we're going to look at. Then we're going to go to respiration. I'll tell you all about it. We'll do some exercises. We're going to do vibration. I'll tell you all about it. We're going to do some exercises. I'll tell you about resonance, and I'll tell you some exercises. And I will tell you that I have put in the chat already a handout that you can all copy at home. And it kind of will be a very general reminder of the things that we're talking about today. And I will admit that it is from a previous presentation I did in Portugal, in Lisbon, Portugal, at a World Choral Expo. And so you will see that information there. And I did that with Alan Henderson, who is the executive director of the National Association of Teachers of Singing. He and I have done a lot of things together. So now let's start with hormones. On the left here, you see a picture of the hormonal life of a cis female. And you can see the blue is estrogen and the green is progesterone, which we cis females know that when we have our cycle, you have progesterone goes up, progesterone goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Then you can see also that there is a testosterone in there, which is a male hormone, an androgen, but we have some of it too. And you can see that it is the dotted black line there. And it kind of goes up when you go through, you have puberty, and then it stays up and it just sort of dwindles down a little bit, but it has more influence after we've gone through menopause. You can see the birth, there's not a whole lot of hormones. Teens, you've got puberty, then you see this hormonal life, and then you see estrogen goes down, progesterone ceases, and then you see the testosterone line continues. And that's why our voices probably change a little bit too, or change a lot for some people. Then you see in the one on the right, this is the male hormonal life. And even as a cis male, before they're even born, at around 3 to 6 weeks, they have a huge surge of testosterone. And then as you near birth, it goes way down. When you're born, it's down. Once you're born, and immediately afterwards, it goes way up. And then it goes way down, and it stays at the pubertal stage until through childhood and until you reach puberty. And then during puberty, it surges up, and that would be a 4-hour discussion about that, but we won't do that today. And it reaches its peak at about the age 20. And then it goes down about 0.5 to 1% a year until you get to 70, when you have about half the testosterone that you did when you were at your peak. And here's a picture that kind of compares. At the top, that's the male. It's a smoother ride. And Jeremy was just telling me that he's going to be singing some really incredible repertoire. And that is very possible for him at whatever age he is at now. And for females, cis females, it's maybe a shorter amount of time that we can, because our vocal folds are receptors of the sex hormones. So much the same for females as that causes us to menstruate and to be of childbearing years. It ceases, and rather than kind of escalates down like the male does. Okay, now we're going to get to this stuff. This is new stuff to me, and this is where this is going to get dicey and interesting. Now we're going to go to the vagus nerve. Okay, this is really cool. So I have this app called Extreme Anatomy, and I can get it so that it looks just like it looks just a skeleton. And then I can add the digestive system, I can add the respiratory system, and I can add the nerves. So that's what you're seeing right now. And I just wanted to make the impression. Let's look at the middle there. You see the brain. The vagus nerve is very important in singing, and we have a left one and a right one. And it comes out through the cortex, and it just comes out from there. And you can see at the top here, I'm going to see if I can get my little My laser. There we go. Can you see my laser? Jeremy, nod yes or no. Yay. Okay, here's the brain. So it comes out around here, and there's one. And then on the other side, it comes out on the other side. And as the vagus nerve goes down on both sides, you can see that there's these little things right here that go, one goes to the pharynx and another goes to the vocal folds, and the same thing on the other side as well. Okay, and then we're over on the left-hand side now. Let's just look at this and get to know the picture a little bit. Where I'm going right now with my little laser, that is the thyroid cartilage. Then if we go down to here, that is the thyroid cartilage. And these two lay on top of each other. And inside this part are the vocal folds, and I'll show those to you in a little bit. Okay, over here, I put a little bit of muscle in that through the software. And you can see some muscles here. Those are some muscles in the neck outside of the thyroid. Then right here, I've highlighted one and put a big arrow towards it. And that is a cricothyroid muscle. And right here where you see this one here too, that's another one, but I couldn't highlight both. Okay, so when this contracts, this little muscle right here contracts, and that one too, it shifts this forward. And what's inside of it is the vocal folds, and they stretch. So now we'll go to another view of that. Here we go. This will explain it a little more easily. So here you can see that here's one of the vagus nerves going down, and you can see that then it goes down to the heart. It actually continues going down, and it goes to the stomach too. But this one takes a little jaunt off too, and this is called a recurrent nerve, and that goes up into the inside of the thyroid, which we call the intrinsic muscles of the voice. And that's called either the left recurrent laryngeal nerve or just the left laryngeal nerve. So that is pretty cool. Then you can see here in the green part at the top, we get this little guy that goes off, the superior laryngeal nerve. And that you can see one of those goes down here to that muscle that I just showed you in the previous slide and innervates it. And one goes to another part on the other side of that. And it's between those two innervations that they don't do it all at once. They do one, the outside goes, and then when it relaxes, the inside intrinsic muscles contract, then the other one, and that's called a vibrato. And it is actually a tremor. And the other time that you can get tremors can be with Parkinson's, and that's an unvolitional and unplanned tremor. But the tremor in singing of a vibrato is actually something that we train unknowingly. I mean, 100 years ago, they couldn't look inside and see this kind of a thing, but now we can. Hang on. Getting a drink. Hydrate is important. Feel free to have a drink through this. Preferably not alcohol, but but we are having fun. And so that is something that I have been really interested in lately, is what is a vibrato? And yes, I could just talk about the muscles that are innervated, but that it starts at a nerve center somewhere. This is the cranial nerve 10, number 10. And that the vagus nerve, we know, also has a lot to do with relaxation. Breathing has a lot to do with relaxation. There are reasons that you feel better after you sing, because you in with the good air, out with the bad air, in with the good air, out with the bad air, and all the good that does to so much in our bodies. So singing is quite a miraculous thing. And here's just the last two that show those again. So here on the left, you can see this little part that I'm circling around. So that's on the other side, but it's the same one. It's the cricothyroid muscles. And then I love this, that I really made it big. I really opened it up so I could really see the cricothyroid muscles. There's two of them. And I could see this nerve that innervates into it, which was awesome. And then there's another one. You see this one sneaking through there and innervating here. These our messaging from the brain gets slower as we get older, which of course then would affect the vibrato, would affect coloratura, would affect all sorts of things. And here finally, I was able to, this was a project yesterday. I went, hey, if I go big in there, I can even see that recurrent nerve, which is this one where the, and that's coming all the way from that recurrent nerve that loops around the heart and then goes up and then goes inside. And you can see where it's going inside there, inside the thyroid, and innervates all the muscles in there. So I will be interested to hear at some point if that made sense to you guys at all. And even if it didn't, it makes a miraculous impression at what an incredible thing it is that we have this wonderful instrument. So now we're going to go on the interaction of the three main things of singing. So we're going to start with respiration, then we go to vibration, then we go to resonance. So basically I start at the bottom and I go up. So the muscles of respiration, and then the vocal folds that are right in your neck, and then the resonance that happens in your vocal tract. So respiration is, you cannot sing without respiration. And it is the airflow that causes the vibration. And we have 5 textures in our voices that we will be called on to any instrument is called on to do these. One of them is legato, which is smooth, staccato, which is short, coloratura, which is fast, messa di voce, which is crescendo diminuendo, and articulation, which can be like accents, but it can also be all of the targets in the vocal tract and the pressures that it takes to say consonants. We'll talk about that. Also, breath pressure is very much a part of being expressive. And I mean, if you want to go, if you want to sing, no expression, right? Or you can do all sorts of things if you can get that breath pressure to do something. It's harder to do as we get older. So using your air to sing is a huge musical activity. What gets us not thinking about it so much is that we can't see it. It's not a limb. If I exercise my arm, I can see my arm move. If I exercise my legs, I can see my leg move. Okay, but I can't see all this activity going on the inside. So we're going to start with the lower right. The lower right, these guys are called alveoli, and they're little tiny berries, microscopic sized berries. And they're at the end at the little bronchioles. And now go to the left one, and you can see some blood flow in there too, which I'm showing. But let's look at this one. When we're born, we have our trachea, and I put my cursor, my little thing on that. Then we have 2, it doubles. So the trachea becomes 2. And then as the baby is developing inside, then these branch off and they double. And they double, 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 double. And about the 16th, they call it 16th generation, then they start having these little alveoli at the ends of them. And that's where the gases exchange. And depending on how tall you are, so if you're 5'4", you might have 400 million alveoli in you. And if you're 6'7", you might have 720 million alveoli. How do they figure this all out? It's just pure mathematics. Double, 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 there's this many alveoli, and they get to that. And so that's miraculous to me. As we get older, however, the alveoli, they have these little cushy things around them. They can collapse. They don't stay as good. And so you end up having fewer functional alveoli than when you were 35 or, and obviously you're growing as a child. Think of that they're growing new ones that were never there before. And that's a miracle. Now let's go up here to the tissues of the larynx. So the tissues of the larynx that have all of this stuff in it, the tissues of the larynx have collagen, which is sort of bulky stuff, bulky tissue, and they have elastin tissue in them. And that stretches. So when you take a breath, each of those lobes of the lungs, they expand. And then you push your muscles against them, which we'll talk about next, and it pushes the air out of all of that inner stuff and up into the bronchioles and then eventually to the trachea. And you want to have sufficient air pressure in the trachea in order to have vibration. That's a hard thing to do, because now we'll go to this one over here. This shows the layers of the muscles of support. And this is just a few of them. And so you can see on the sides, these guys right here are called the oblique muscles. This is the rectus abdominis. Then you can see your different, and it inserts inside, goes all the way down to the pubic bone. And you can even feel at the pubic bone, sometimes I call it tucky-wucky. You know, if you go, everybody's sitting there right now, all by yourself, just go really hard with a go. Did you feel it sort of tuck in right at the pubic bone? Okay, you have to admit it did. Nobody needs to know you're doing this, but this is something very good that you can feel when you're singing and sitting down. There's a lot of things. I'm going to give you things you can do when you're sitting down to feel your support, because it's hard to just stand there and not have any hands against you or any chair against you. You can feel more with some of that. But these muscles, as we get older, do atrophy. And so they're not as willing to offer as much compression around the lung tissue. And that is a challenge for us. Another thing that happens is, because of all of this, we start out at a certain height, and more than likely we end up shorter. I'm already 3/4 of an inch shorter, and I have my bone density tests and all that stuff that tells me mine is just normal. There are no concerns at all. But for some people, you have to take some medication to encourage muscle mass to stay strong. Then another thing that happens is, here we are right here, the younger rib cage. The younger rib cage has more ability to rotate than the older rib cage, which is over here. And so as a young person, these ribs can go all the way up. Just imagine that like you're taking it's kind of like shutters. You know, you can open up the shutter full. But here in the older one, our shutters are already kind of half open. So they can only go a certain distance. They have less joint rotation ability. Now let's go here. Another thing that we have, it's called residual volume. And residual volume, let's pretend this left one is a regular 32-year-old. And this one is from an older person. Let's just say we're 75, okay, or 70. Notice here the residual volume, they only need this much residual volume. And therefore they can use all their breath down to that, and they can't go into the residual volume. Okay, and so but they can take a breath quickly too, because their tissues are not, they're still real elastin. Remember that last one that I showed you just before this of the tissues of the lobes of the lungs themselves. They're willing to expand quickly and efficiently, and all the air comes in and goes into all those lovely little alveoli and through the bronchioles, etc. Okay, but it takes me a longer time for the recoil of the lung itself without any muscles involved, let alone the fact that now my residual volume is this much. So I need to take a breath sooner than I used to. And that really irritates me. But that's the way it is. So get over it, Karen, deal with it, take another breath. And that's how we deal with some of that. And this is just to show you the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is a skinny muscle that is incredibly strong. And when you take a breath, it lowers it. So from here, you see this sort of like this goes down and sort of flattens, and all the organs that are down in here, the stomach, the liver, etc., they get squished down, and that's why we see our bellies go out. So it's not muscle, it's not diaphragms that are going out, they're just pushing stuff down. Okay, this is our first exercise time. So you have to be uh, ready to do these, and we're going to do them sitting down to begin with. So we are going to look at, oops, sorry, I got to get back here now. That's just 1 second. Now you know what we're going to next. And I'll get back to what I wanted. There we go. So we're going to do the 5 places sitting down that we can feel our muscles of breathing. So take your knuckles, and I'm showing in my thing, I don't know if you can see me, but take your knuckles and you're going to put them here. I'm going to stand up and show you right here, if you can see me there. And I dig in deep. Now we're going to go with a V and it makes my muscles inside of me push my fists out. So just do that. Go. And then when you quit, they quit. So you don't have to isometrically hold them out. It's your singing activity that causes that to happen. So that is the first place that you can feel things. So we're going to just do some little exercises here. I have my handy dandy electronic piano right with me. And we're going to go 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. Here we go. And what you should be feeling is that while you're singing, those muscles are pushing your knuckles out from the inside of you. When you take a breath, those muscles completely quit until you start singing again. Okay? Here you go again. We'll go a little higher. It gets a little harder as you go here. And often I would follow it up with an exercise we're going to do a little bit later, but we'll just go with that for now. Okay, then we're going to put our hands, I don't remember what I wrote next, so let me just take a peek. Those were our obliques that we just had. Now we're going to put our hands on our pecs, which is up here. If you take a look at me, and I use the heel of my hand and I shove it in there good and hard, and I just sit relaxed. And we're going to do, before we do this exercise, so that you can feel what happens, let's just go, do you feel something engage right there? And it's right by your armpits that you're doing this, okay? You feel other things happen too, but we're just going to concentrate for right now. Okay, and let's just do a few of those again. Here we go. Great. And you can do a bunch, do like 10, and that'll be plenty. Then we're going to go to the next one that we're going to go to is the upper back. So for this, if you're sitting in a chair, lean back against your chair. So and kind of press yourself back. And again, now just go, and I can feel my lower and my upper back press against the chair. So here we go. And I guarantee by the end of this, my voice is going to be warmed up beautifully. So, and now here's the next one is we're going to lean over. And so I will lower this a little bit so you can see that I'm leaning over like this.
Karen,
And we are going to go a V to the pubic bone. And this is something, if I like, I invented this when I saw a young man who was like, just like, this is so stupid, you know, that kind of thing. And he was going like this, and he was going, woo. And so I said, boy, you're really feeling it here, aren't you? And that got him engaged in the class, you know. And this is actually the best place to feel things. So now let's make it an octave. Let's really challenge ourselves. So we're gonna feeling that. Okay, you don't have to put your hands on it. You just have to lean on your knees. Here we go. The muscles release. Now they engage.
Karen, sorry.
So I hope you feel that, because that's a doozy. That really helps. The last one that I do with people, if you're sitting against especially a hard chair, you can actually reflect on how your rear end against the chair is flexing when you sing and relaxes when you take a breath. So if you're looking at me again here, you can see it's kind of like, and then it relaxes, and then, so let's do a few of those. Here we go. Just feeling your rear end.
Karen?
So we've done 1-3-5-3-1, and we've done 1-3-5-8-5-3-1 with all of these. It's very, very helpful. So those are the 5 places that you can feel it. And this is going to also be on the handout that you get as well. And
Karen,
this is going to be available. Are there any?
Karen,
Yes.
Jeremy here. There's a suggestion to set your audio settings to natural sound for a musician.
And I don't know if I could do that now that I'm into this. Are you having trouble hearing me?
The musical stuff gets Zoom filters that out.
On it? Okay, okay, I see what to do. Okay, so, oh dear.
So do you know where that is?
There's yeah, I have to go to settings.
It's in your audio settings by your mute button.
Right.
And down at the bottom is audio settings.
Okay, audio settings.
And then down at the bottom of that window is original sound for musicians.
There we go. It's on.
Okay.
It says it's on. Original sound for musicians is on.
Okay.
Okay. That's too bad. Yeah. Maybe I need to turn it off. Maybe I need to do that. Is that better?
That actually is.
Okay. Sometimes it's the opposite on my end that's needed. So, okay. Do let me know that stuff, though. I appreciate that very much. That can make it a much better experience for all of you, too. Okay, now you see on this, and let me know, Jeremy, how it's going, okay? So now I have unvoiced and voiced consonants. So you can put your hands in your obliques on the sides here again. And it's interesting, if we just take an A440 and we're going to go, how much more we need to go, then we need to go. So first just go. So you feel a little bit of support. Now go, and then a really good exercise is if you go, try that. Ready? Together. Now let's go to the hiss. You can go, or you can go, it calls on more. That's quite a fine motor skill. We can even do the sh. Let's do it on here. Let's go. Sh. I think that's really, really hard. And then we can go like we have the word think, and we have the word this, okay? And all you choral directors or choral singers, you know, there's a difference between a TH for think and this. If we go, it's hard. So those are the fine, fine motor skills that really involve breath support, and so does expression. Now we're going to go to vibration. Okay, and vibration, of course, those are your vocal folds that vibrate. I showed you pictures of the larynx, and this is the source of human vocal sounds. You go into all these divergent things when you're reading about this, but one is, so how do different animals make sounds? I don't know about anybody else there, but I just love watching Dr. Pohl on the, he's a veterinarian, and you can watch him for hours and hours on the National Geographic TV thing, and I've been doing that lately, and I'm learning a lot about how different animals make sounds, and it's not all the same. But the vocal folds also they ripple as the air is alternately trapped and then released. And so we get puffs of sound into the vocal tract, and that turns into resonance. But first, we're going to stick with vibration right now. So here on the left is the front view of the laryngeal structure. Again, here we see the thyroid, where you see that whole side is the thyroid. Then you see that it sits on top of the cricoid, and this rocks forward. I'm muted. Okay. Somehow I got muted. Let me try that again. Do I need to go back and try that again, Jeremy? Okay, I'll go back. Well, we're on it. We're good. Okay, so here's the laryngeal structure. And here is the cricoid, or the thyroid, sorry. And that sits on top of the cricoid. We saw those little muscles that are connected here and here and here and here, and that when they contract, they rock the thyroid forward, stretching the vocal folds so that you're singing a higher pitch. We also talked about how those go, in a vibrato, they're contracted, then they release, then they're contracted, then they release, and they do that about 5 to 7 times a second. A miraculous thing, which enhances tone as well. How did mankind figure that out? Here we see the hyoid bone, which is the only bone in the laryngeal structure until later. And here we see the epiglottis, and the epiglottis comes down over the vocal folds so that when we swallow, it's a two-parter. Your vocal folds come together completely when you swallow, and the epiglottis leafs down over it. And that double whammies that we're sure not to get foreign objects into our lungs, which can be fatal. Interestingly, this is a wonderful used by X-ray. People who do X-rays, if they're looking in the larynx, they need to know whether it is a metal object or something that reads as bone in the larynx, if something is lodged in there, or is it actually the laryngeal structure itself, because the laryngeal structure itself ossifies. And you can see here that here's your first decade, second decade, third decade of life. Not a whole lot happens, but we do see in your 20s that you start to get a little bit of ossification so that it reads as a bone in an X-ray at the back of the thyroid. And then you see below that, and you go into your, now this is in your late 20s, this is in your 30s, it does more. And here you can see in your 40s even more. With those differences, the larynx doesn't have as much give and take. but it didn't have a whole lot to begin with, other than when you were a newborn, the entire larynx is spongy, but it has gotten harder and harder through the years. And actually, probably the peak time, the late 20s to the 40s, that it probably has to do too with that there's just enough give and take, yet there's stability, laryngeal stability within the cartilages of the larynx. And by the time you're 50, particularly in men, it can be completely ossified and read on an X-ray as a bone. And then we have to go to the vocal folds. So the vocal folds, I have two, maybe more, three pictures of this to give you different perspectives. So when you're a baby, this entire thing is this kind of substance, which is gel-like, like Jello, okay? And the entire thing is that. Because you cried and made noises, it makes the cells differentiate into two kinds of substance. And so two kinds of tissues. And so you'll have the very gelatinous, and then you'll have this next layer. The next layer is, as it gets more mature, is more elastin. Then you have the next one, which is collagen. And finally, in the inside, this deep red part is actually muscle, which is the vocalis muscle or the thyroarytenoid. And that is the muscle that contracts. Remember those nerves that go intrinsically into the thyroid space, and it is innervated to contract, and it shortens the vocal folds. And so that is just a miraculous thing. The proportions of these layers change throughout life. And once you get to be an adult, they are at a certain proportion for each one of them, and they pretty much stay that way. But as we get older, we have, this is supposed to be, the epithelium is supposed to be very moist. It doesn't stay as moist. We have less moisture in us. Even the gelatinous part, some of that starts to not be as gelatinous as it used to be. The stretching does not stretch as well, and when old cells die off and new cells come in, they're not as stretchy as the older ones, the original ones were. Collagen changes too, and even the muscles that generally within each of these things that you see, muscles run very parallel to each other, they start spinning off. And therefore, the quality of our vocal folds, they're not as strong as they can be. But we still sing. We absolutely still sing. Here's another look at the layers. There's that epithelium, and then there's the part that is the gelatinous, and then we can have the collagen, and it doesn't show exactly the same as the other one, but the collagen and the elastin, and then the collagen, and then the muscle inside, and how those change too. I love this picture. It takes it like it's fabric. So we have this outside sheen on the fabric. That's your epithelium. And then we've got these stretchy little parts, or this jello-like part. And then we get a little more stretchy part. And then it gets a little more secure and collagen. And then finally that muscle. This shows very much how probably the muscles, and even though this is a fabric kind of idea, it shows that the thyroarytenoid at its peak has beautiful parallel muscular tissues. Now we're going to look at the vocal folds. And this is a picture of the vocal folds of adults. And this is before people are older. The one on the left is a male, and the one on the right is a female, just to make the point that the male laryngeal structure is larger than the female's is. Now, as we get older, we see typically more viscosity in all the tissues around it. In this picture, you can see here is the epiglottis, and here around here, you can see that you can see more vascularity in it, more little blood vessels. And this is a nice open larynx. Even inside of it, you can see it's a little bit more vascular. That is normal. Okay, and here becomes the conundrum in that these are the vocal folds coming together, and they don't come together all the way. And this is called a chink, or it's a little space between them, and a little air can come through it. And typically, it's easier to make E and A clear than it is to make ah and O. Particularly ah is the hardest to make. These come closer together. So now thinking back, as we were talking about the muscles of support, that they're not quite as strong, and it takes enough muscular activity to get enough air up into the trachea to give us air pressure under the vocal folds. But we also have the situation that the folds might be a little more stubborn about coming together. Throughout young adult years, that is a time when nodes can be a problem. If you're too muscular with your singing and you press those vocal folds together too hard. So in the students I work with at Northwestern, I'm watching all the time to make sure that they're not over adducting, bringing together their vocal folds, because that could lead to problems, little bumps on it that could need surgery, or a polyp that develops. So, but as we get older, polyps are still a possibility, but it's really highly unusual that we're going to get nodes. Yet we have playing in our minds that don't push and don't overdo it, but this is a time when, if I take a walk, and I haven't taken a walk for a long time, when I get home, I'm going to feel it. That doesn't mean I should quit walking. It means I should walk some more and get those muscles in better shape so that they listen to to the nerves that tell muscles to move, and then do the action. And that is good training. So don't be surprised if, as you get older, it just takes a bit more, and you have to be more mindful about making sure that you're engaging your muscles of support. And you might even feel it in your back more, and you might even have a little backache when you get done. It is just a different time. And I am experiencing that, that's for sure. Now we are to the next thing. These are going to be exercises for vibration. So the first thing we're going to do is, we never want to use this muscle under our chin. So you see where my thumb is right there. So if you take your thumb and put it up under your chin and then wrap it like this, and you go, does that press on your thumb? We don't want it to. Now do it pretty vigorously so that you get a really good, honest reading of your own stuff. Go, like, good for the Campbell's soup can. And be honest with yourself. Did it push your thumb down a little bit? Did it push it down a lot? Did it do nothing? And what you'll find too, let's go. Mine stays fine, but I know when I get to higher notes, now that I'm older, it presses my thumb down. And even though I'm not going to be successful getting that to go down, I'm still good to know it. So let's do that. I'm not going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. So here we go. Now I'm up to a C on that, and I'm doing pretty good. Do you also notice your breathing too? Because you're sitting down. So you can notice a lot of things at one time. Here, we're going to start here again. We're going to go higher. Here we go. Now on D flat, I got some pressing back on my thumb. Doggone it. Now if I go lower, and some of us will get no pressing back. So let's try that. Here we go. I also feel it in my in the front of my face. But that is not the way I feel it when I actually sing. But it's still a really good feedback on the mm. So right here again. Some of the men might be really enjoying this. Then just for fun, you can go. That's hard. You're going to feel your muscles engaging and disengaging, engaging to make that. Now notice the next one that's listed is actually that exercise, but we take our knuckles and we dig them into the obliques once again. So put your hands down. I'm standing up again just to show you. Put your hands here again, and we're going to go. Okay, let's try that. Now try it on the O because it's going to be harder. We're going to go 3 pulses. Try that. And likely culprits that you'll try will be go, ho, 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 ho. And we don't want H's. Just do that once. That's what we want. Try that again. And while I'm telling you to do that too, I'm going to tell you to front the tongue, which here's the tip of the tongue, and it should be here. Not going, so let's try it again, okay? This is work, isn't it? But we like it. I'm going to jump now to number 4. So creaking is this noise that you can make, and it's like it's wow. So we hear they're telling young people, don't talk like that so much, come on, let's not do that. We should do it a lot. Because what happens, remember those vocal folds I showed you that weren't quite together? Going, brings them together. And I have saved many a singer who, like at the age of 60 or so, starts not being able to do open vowels, and ah. But they start doing that, and you can do it on a hum. You can go, wow. You could have quite a party in your head with that. Wow. Now go, okay, because I was better just then. I don't know if you could tell, but here we go. Down one. Okay, now we're going to do staccati, and we're going to use our knuckles again in the oblique muscles, which are on your sides, and we're going to go. And get kind of mad, internally mad, because you're going to use your muscles then more. Here we go. And Jeremy, are they hearing me okay now? Okay, so good. Here we go. And two more. I'm in good voice now. Okay, that really helped me. Okay, and then we've got the creaking exercise that we talked about. So now, okay, so we've done breathing, we've done vibration. The next thing is resonance. So I really do think of resonance as an acoustic party in my head. And this concept, it's a whole lot more fun than just trying to be academically correct. And we're making noises. So what I sense my acoustics kind of up here, and I call that my acoustic aura. So, and one of the best things going for it these days, it's called SOVT, semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. And I'll give you a whole bunch of those. Another thing that we find is that changes a great deal in us as we age is that our resonator, which is called the vocal tract, goes through huge changes. And we might have to remap how we're using our tongue or what the important things are to think about. So we'll get to that. We'll talk about format tuning, which is playing with things so that they tune up inside of you better and come out better and more clearly. And we're going to talk about also the ring of the voice, which is called the singer's format cluster. So let's get to know what's going on here on the left. So on the left, you can see our lips. Even our lips matter. Even our lips lose some muscle as we get older. So talking a lot and kissing a lot and anything you can do, that's really good for you. Keeps everything around here more agile. You can see the teeth here. Those are your dental. Right here, you can see that is the alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge is where you make L, N, T, D, and R. So go with me, say L, N, T, D, R. And some people can't roll their R's. That's okay. Okay, but that is really, a lot of times in some of the poetry for pieces, they might have the tender lapping. So t is an alveolar consonant. N is an alveolar consonant. D is an alveolar consonant. L is tender letter. All of those are right there. And that's another way something that poets use a lot, alliteration. So that's a big point of contact. The tongue goes up to there, and you felt that. Okay, then as we go back here, this is the hard palate, and this is the soft palate. Just like your ears and your nose continue to grow through life, the soft palate does too. I mean, it's hardly, but it is something. And just a side thing to say, if I take my ear and I go like this to it, it's hard. It's pretty hard. Now I see a mother-daughter, Joyce there. If you feel I don't know if you're her daughter, but if you feel your mom's, I bet it's harder than yours. So it's very interesting. And if I was holding a baby and I felt their ear, it's like nothing. It's just nothing. So it has ossified. Yeah, they're doing it, Joyce and her mom. It's yeah, there you go. There you go. And if you had a baby, you could really feel the difference. So some things, and this is what your larynx does too. I showed you those pictures back there a little while ago, and you could see the larynx, but you couldn't feel it. And it's just amazing how that changes. Then also you see the tongue, which also goes through muscular change. And sometimes that can be the constrictor muscles that are back here that help you swallow and stuff. Sometimes that needs attention in older age. But I wonder if the more nimble we keep all of this, the better. And then this is called the uvula. It hangs down. On the right here, on the picture there, it shows the whole entire thing, which is shaped like that. You see that on cartoons when they're going, and then the uvula wiggles, which it doesn't necessarily do. But that is part of the soft palate, and it's called the velum. So there are things you can do to wake the back of the throat up, and we'll get to that soon too. This is just to show you that the female vocal tract is not as big as the male vocal tract. And everybody's vocal tracts are different. This is also just to show you how incredibly we change from childhood, infancy, to childhood, to pubescent, to young adult, to senior citizen. We really go through huge changes through our lives. So the miracle of the child to me was to read like, they don't have a back of the throat like we have here. We have a long one here. We have just a little bit here. The larynx sits very high, maybe at the third or even the second level, and that there is not, the tongue doesn't work as well. And it's through suckling and eating and making noise that all of that starts to grow. That's a whole nother presentation. Here's another, just a reminder. Here is the tongue, okay, where our taste buds are. And it goes all the way down the back and around, it kind of cups around. And so we have our lips in the front. The tongue blade is right there, and that is where you're touching the alveolar ridge with that part of your tongue. And you've got the tongue dorsum. This is what I want to talk about a bit. When you say E, notice that when you say E, the tip of the tongue is touching down by your bottom teeth, underneath it or right around it. E, but the back, get to know the back. The back is touching your top molars on an E vowel. E. Knowing that can help resonance like you can't imagine. And I'm going to force feed that to you in a little bit here. Now I'm going to get to this. I invented this picture, sort of, part of it. So we have the front of our mouth, which we're going to call the front room. And I give credit to this to a wonderful pedagogue and Ken Bozeman. And this is the back room. Okay. So he called it the front room and the back room. I call it the front room and the party room. Because although we try to sing forward sometimes, that's been something handed down in voice lessons, that sing forward, put it in the mask. We are finding that by actually thinking behind our ears more, back there, that we actually invigorate the acoustics more than we do by saying, huh. So take this is another little exercise. Take the heel of your hands again and put them here again. Now, why does our chest have to be up? So if you just open the front, you go, do that okay? Now we're going to open the back, like when you're on an airplane and your ears won't open, we're going to go. Did you feel these muscles engage? I'm sure you did, yeah, because you can't do it without them. So, okay, let's do that one more time. It's a good exercise. It's a good thing to, I will see my singers right during the middle of a lesson, they go. Stick your tongue out even, and really give it a stretch back there. That's a real prime place for some wonderful resonance to happen. That's the pharynx. And that's where the velum goes up. You should be able to look in a mirror and you can see the hanging down thing, the uvula, and you should be able to make that go up in the back of your throat. And I wish I could show you mine, but I can't. So I just know what I can do is I can take a phone and I will turn on the light on my phone and I'll take a student to the mirror and I'll shine it in mine and show them mine. And then they'll use the phone and see if they can get their velum up. And I have seen this improve the voice like unbelievably immediately. It's like a miracle worker. So the back of the room, and when I teach, I don't teach like this. I don't teach with my mouth kind of bored and stuff like that. I'm like, hi, how are you? And more than likely, if you're going to have a rehearsal, you're like, greetings. The greetings to everybody is really important as part of the first part of the rehearsal, and that starts getting things going, and an energy kind of gets going, which means you're going to use your obliques more too. But that's back room, party room kind of good stuff. And so you have all the things that you have going for you in your vocal tract are your tongue is going to do a lot. Think about that. It's very, very busy. Your lips, ooh, oh, and we don't want to use them for some things. Ken Bozeman says your lips for like E-A-ah should be kissably soft is how he says it. And then you're going to have your velum. That's where you have to, that's that velum way back there when you go, oh, it's a surprise, it's not it's a, so we have to kind of make those things happen. And it's better to make it happen just organically, like, hello. And your jaw also, we open our jaws a lot on low notes. And we think that dropping the jaw is the end all. It's not the end all. It's one thing that some people need to do. And if I go, D, my jaw is dropped, but it's not D, and that makes weird vowels. So doing the vowel inside, D, where my tongue is fronted, and I'm touching my molars in the back is really good. Let's try that. Okay, let's just go. D, D, and so you have some reference points inside your own mouth, which your back upper molars are really important. And there's articulation points too. And we're going to get some exercises that emphasize that as well. So if you go, those are two lips, two labials, and it's two of them, so that's bilabial. So just say bib, bib. Now go, That's bilabial too, because it takes two lips to do that. Now go, that's bilabial too. So B, P, M are bilabials. Sometimes knowing that within a rehearsal can help you with your diction. You can be kind of literal about the whole thing. Okay, then we have our dental, and dental can be like digga, 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 D. It's alveolar ridge too. Dental and alveolar ridge can go together. But dental, you can also do the that's interdental, between the teeth. Then the alveolar ridge is the D, L, N, T, R, velar, K, G, and K is the unvoiced version of G. And you're going to see in a little bit how much I love G's. This is a picture that really, I'm sorry, now I have to get back there. And, oops. There we go. This shows a picture on the left. We see a picture of a skeleton in their 30s. And we see a head of a skull skeleton of an older female here. And what happens is that the bones, you have tissues that die off, and then they're replaced with new tissues. And as a child, you're having many, many more new tissues in muscles, bones, and various tissues are being replenished, and then some. Then you kind of hit adulthood and it's about 50-50. About 50% are dying off and 50% are being replaced. As we get older, we have less replacement and we have more dying off. And so we do see some of the bones. That's why we're at what is that called when you're going to fall? You're a fall issue. You have to be careful so that you don't break your arm or break a leg or break a rib. But we can also see in the jaw, what happens is you have less of the jaw has gotten smaller, and dentition has been affected by that as well. Even the eye sockets look bigger because the mandible up there, or maxilla up there, has had some deterioration in it as well. The picture in the middle is really a cool picture that I got when I was in Germany. We went to the Charité Hospital, and Dr. Dirk Möbe, that's his finger there, he was very instrumental in developing the way to take sliced imaging like this so that it would be a 3D image that you could move around. And this is what it would look like if you took like foam and put it in your mouth and it hardened and you pull it out, and this is what it would look like. So that is not, you're not seeing anything but air. And all of that green stuff is just the space that there is in the mouth and the throat, and down you can see the ringlet of the cricoid there too. So really amazing what's happening with that and how it affects our understanding of singing too. We're thinking about the air that's in our mouth while we're singing. This makes the case about what I said before. You can see at the top, that's a baby. Even their jaw isn't completely hard when they're born. Then they get baby teeth. Then the baby teeth fall out and they get adult teeth. All of this has repercussions for the size of the vocal tract and the shape of the vocal tract. Then they get their molars and they're adults. And then we see the deterioration, or the less new tissue and more old tissue dying away. And again, this is normal. This is what happens. Okay, so now to our next area of resonance exercises. And we're going to go, these are my favorite exercises, and people make fun of me for them, but I can deal with that, but they always work. So the first one we're going to do is going to be bilabials, and we're going to go, so we have the, just go, bib. Okay, and then we have D on the end, which is an alveolar ridge one. But knowing what our tongue is doing, our lips and our tongue are doing it this time. Let's try a few of those. Here we go. Now let's go up, and I also want you to sense the sound. So if you go, you can feel it kind of an acoustic explosion happen. See if you notice your own acoustic aura. And see if you notice what it takes to make that happen. Because it also takes those muscles of support. It also takes sensing the voice, which is called proprioception, which is hearing it, feeling it inside you, feeling it outside you, or noticing it. So here we go. And even at 70, I can sing really clearly with those and with that amount of volume. So volume, as we get older, we're not as good at doing the soft stuff. I cramp up. I don't know if anybody else experiences cramping around their neck, but doggone it, I was a really good singer, but I'm experiencing cramping. And I will say too, this is more information than you want to know, but I had a complete hysterectomy at the age of 39. And so I had no hormones after that. And then I did hormone replacement till I was 47. But I immediately did lose then I could sing up to a high F, that one. you could even hear it there. I could sing up that high in exercises. I could touch it. Okay. And immediately after that, it was down to a D, that high D. And the voice was never quite the same after that. But it was still professional level quality, and I sang a lot. But I knew, and I will always know, that that was the case. These exercises really, really helped me, made me appreciate my own acoustics. The next one we're going to do is giggity, gaggity, giggity, gaggity, goo. So it helps to look at it as you go. So it's going to be giggity, gaggity, giggity, gaggity, goo. Try it. What I like about it is going, try that once, front the tongue, but you're going to feel the back of the tongue going pa, 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 in the back. Try that. Now, maybe you can't do it as fast as me. Try that. You know, and you should picture me. I'm all alone here in my room, having the best time. So, and I hope you are too. Now, if you go giggity, just go giggity and hear the clarity kind of behind you. Now let's try it. Let's go up. And I want to make the point too that when I breathe, I don't just go, I get the back of my throat, that back behind the red line, the pharynx, I get it ready. So I'm going, and if I'm doing giggity, I go, I'm already ready to do it. So just do that one time and go, and you'll find that the dorsum part of your tongue is hitting up against pretty firmly the velum. Try it. And you will hear your own acoustic. And that's what's possible. It's possible to sing that clearly. So let's try that again. And then I invented the next one just because it's the opposite of giggity. Instead, it's digga, 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 do. And let's make that goo on the end. I don't say do on the end. Digga, 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 goo. You can say do. Say do. Okay. Digga, 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 do. 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 And I always talk about the smile in the back of the throat. And guess what? If you go, gig, you have to have a smile in the back of the throat because the tongue has to be wide to do a g. And so that's a win-win proposition for you. Now take this into some repertoire that you're doing. And let's just say that your word is Goethe. You have to say Goethe. G. You can feel that in the back. What if you have to say gilded? Gilded. And if you actually know where the tongue is going and go, I can say that really extra special good because I did this webinar. And so it's a lot of fun. Then I like to just, after I've done that, it's fun to go to the vowels by going T, 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 or we can go T, T, T. Usually I do the A first because it's easier to do it on a bright vowel. But you can do it T-A, T-A, T-O. Let's try the T-O, okay? On the last one. And then you get the goodness of the E vowel that has some clarity, that has the tongue going like this. So Another interesting thing about an E vowel is that when you sing an E vowel, you're actually doing two vowels at one time. So if you say E and you cover your mouth, which I'll do now, and I'm not changing a thing, E, 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 and that tells me, isn't that interesting? The same thing happens on A, but the vowel is different in the back. A, O, A, O, A, O. It's O on the back of an A. And that's going to matter for something I'm going to show you shortly. So this is from a something on my phone. It's called Spectral Analyzer. And there are fancy spectral analyzers that I actually don't know how to use, but this makes the point. So all of us can understand here that here you can see, let's look at these bottom lines down here. I'm doing an octave scale on that. I'm doing D, D, and with each one of those wiggles, you can see that that's a different tone. And then I went up a half step and I did it again. Then I went up a half step and did it again. Then I went up, etc. And then I held it for a while in the last one. So that is my fundamental. Now, if I go up here, this is the vowel. So when we sing a song, we're not just singing one polka dot into things. We're singing, I go like this, if you can look at my hand. I put my hand like this, and down there, that's the notes I'm singing. Right here, those are the vowels. And then up above is something else I'll tell you about in a minute. But this is a double format vowel, so it's an E vowel, which has, we know, the E thing in it. Okay, and that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm doing there. That's what I'm doing there. That's what I'm doing there. But I'm getting higher and it changes a little bit. That's pretty cool. Now, then I did, I should show them what it looks like if I'm doing just 5 notes. So it would be, so I'm going D, O, E. So notice here, all of that has some red in it. Notice here, this part's gone because I'm not doing the bright part of it. I'm not doing the E part of it. Then it comes back when I go to the O, or E. Did I do that backwards? This is the E where it has both. This is the O that has just this but doesn't have that. And this is the E that has that and this. So E, E, O, E. Cool. Okay. Now, when we get to this part, notice that this part up here is there virtually all the time. And that is called the ring of the voice. And it is not too late to ask that to come into your voice. It's something that generally has to be taught in. And it measures, you can see over here on this side right here, you can see that that part going all the way across there, if you were a child, if you were, no, not a child, if you were a male or a female adult and you trained classically, you would have this element in your sound. Okay? And it measures from about 2,800 hertz, about here, I'm right on spot, and it can go up to about 4,000. Mine goes up to about 3,200, which is textbook perfect for a mezzo. And so that's me going, so if I sing without my ring, D, 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 I have trouble doing it because I'm trained into it. But if I add it in, D, it's adding that element in. D, D, D. So let's just play and see if you can add that element into your sound. For men, let's do it on an A vowel. So you're going to go A. Okay, you're going to feel a distinct difference. And the women, See if you can bring that in, that little clarity factor. Here we go. On that, you should feel, if you get that tongue up, this is called the dorsum. If you get it up touching those back molars in the back, it's likely to be there more so than if you don't. So let's do that again. Then as you go up, you have to kind of open more. You just have to. So I'm kind of showing the middle. Now let's try it with the D-O-E. It's harder because the O gets too breathy. Good luck. Here we go. And I can't be passive about it and do it. I have to energize my body and tell it, go, girl. Here we go. And that ring factor is something that I can definitely enhance. And if you listen to the greatest singers on the planet right now and the recordings of the great ones in the past, they all had it. And in fact, one of my friends is Ian Howell, and he has done something where he takes something that looks sort of like this, but it's more complex. It's called Voce Vista. And he takes out the harmonics in this system and lets you hear her voice without certain harmonics. And he even takes up all this stuff that you're seeing up here. You know, this is that's acoustic noise, but it's still part of my voice, you know, and it still resounds in a way, especially when I went up higher there. And so he took Leontine Price and took out this stuff, and it doesn't sound like Leontine Price. So it's really interesting what we add into our own acoustics. It is an acoustic party in your head. So this is pretty much what I have for you. This is what I have for you as far as a handout goes. And I think that it offers enough interesting things that, and on the second page, it talks about everything we talked about. You see a few of the pictures too. One of the exercises we did not do, and I want us to do, if you have a credit card close by, take it out. And this is called the vocal buzz, the buzzing card. If you don't have a card, use your finger, and you're going to put it right there. Okay, but here, let me do this for you. Now join me, whether it's with your finger or with a card. And the card, you have to kind of get the laser beam of the breath pressure so that it makes the card buzz. And after it, we're going to do giggity, gaggity, giggity, gaggity, goo again, and you're going to see the difference that makes. Here we go. Sitting down, you probably feel your gut engaging, you know, and then you feel this too. Let's do it one more time. Just let's do 3 of them. Right there again. Put the card down. Giggity, 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 go. Here we go. Giggity, 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 go. Giggity, go. Giggity, go. Giggity, go. And I feel a lot more engaged and a lot more muscles working together with the acoustics through the breath pressure that I'm creating. So that is a miracle. And with this, it's a miracle too. You see on here the pharyngeal stretch. I described that. You see bibbidi bobbidi boo giggity digga digga. You see the card and you see the finger that you can use. You see the picture here of your vocal tract and where the line is that we start thinking in the back, which we should think every time we breathe. Take a breath that makes that release. You see also here some of the semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. You see the pictures of the lungs and the muscles and the alveoli, not the alveoli, but the tissues themselves. Then on the second page of it, you see, oh, sorry, I'll get there. Oh, are we going backwards? Okay, I'll get it. That's my thank you, and that's another slide. Okay, oh, and there's all these exercises too. Okay, there, okay, now you see on the second page of it, you can see it says Aaron Johnson, MRI, showing articulation. I'm really proud of Aaron Johnson. He's my voice student. He was the first year that I taught at Northwestern, he was one of my voice students. And he is now an award-winning voice scientist. And he did write with me the chapter on the aging singer in my book. And so he's a smarty patootie. Then Tyler Ross, Making the Voice Visible, shows an MRI, which is also what Aaron Johnson is doing in that, the one before it. And you can see how the tongue moves and stuff and how that changes everything inside. I like the UNT, University of North Texas Diction Resources. I like the explanation about the vocal tract from the Voice Science Works, and then your Vocology Toolbox, and just some others that are really good about guides to great singing. Now I will go to those final ones, and it takes me just a moment. There we go. Okay, so here is some of those revisited once more. All of those lip trills, tongue trills, good, the finger kazoo, viving. Also a little straw, if you go to a bar and you have a little stir stick, straw phonation has become extremely beneficial. And here's a reminder about the 5 textures of the voice: your legato, staccato, coloratura, messa di voce, articulation, and the ramifications of support, the ramifications of the party in your head that happens because of them. Your tessitura, how that may change as we get older. It may go higher, it may go lower, it may be more limited. Also, the vocal color that you have has probably changed, and we want to try and restore that as much as we can through thinking about our acoustics and semi-occluded vocal tract exercises like the card, like the straw, like buzzing, the buzzing lips. Those really help. And then the ability to sustain notes also gets challenged as well. But if the acoustics are better, the sustainability, it gets better as well. And a reminder of some of the exercises, the pharyngeal stretch, again, the 5 textures of singing. If you find that you're getting a little bit tense when you take a breath, snore, go for the next breath. Don't let anybody hear it, but that relaxes the throat. The onset exercises we did with the hee, 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 which are also staccatos. And then I mentioned also the creaking, but another one for people to get their larynx to relax down is to go, if you put your hand on your upper chest, you can feel a vibration when you go, that's a very good way to do it. And here's a reminder of all the different things you can do for semi-occluded vocal tract. The humming, you can go an NG in your throat. You can do z, you can do you can do lip trills, you can do the straw, you can do raspberries where your tongue is sticking out going. You can put the straw in water and do bubbles in the water. That keeps your breath, that if you overblow, it'll make it splash out at you. And if you don't overblow, it stays steady, which is kind of the nature of support. And then I encourage you to snag your own resonance with these bibbidi bobbidi giggity gaggities and digga doo goo. The National Center for Voice and Speech is in Salt Lake City, Utah. And here are the recommendations that they make. And that is Ingo Tietze is a world-renowned, wonderful, he's just a wonderful voice scientist leading the world in studies of vocology. But he says you drink 64 ounces of water. Don't speak abnormally. Try to use your abdominal muscles when you speak so that you don't do vocally abusive things. He says in here to excessive yelling, screaming, coughing, that you can actually do good by talking. A lot of throat clearing means there's something going on in there maybe, but you can do a lot of good by speaking up. Speak clearly, put it in there. Exercise those muscles of support. My dad lived to be 91, and one of the things I could tell in the last 8 years of his life was his support wasn't in there. And so when I'd come home, I go, "How you doing, Dad?" And he'd try to rev it up a little bit, and it did help. Also, warm up your voice before using it. All you have to do is take a strong go, or go, or any of those things. Warm up both the voice and this and the factors that contribute to great acoustics. Then it says, don't talk or sing at unnatural pitches. I don't know, that's kind of too high, isn't it? And I have a bass. He's talking a little too low sometimes, and so we want to be heard. That's the bottom line. It says to stay away from over-the-counter medications like aspirin, but sometimes that aspirin is keeping us alive. And if that's the case and your doctor ordered it, I would go with that. It does thin the blood, and there is an increase of bleeding of the vocal folds, but probably you're taking a tiny little aspirin that isn't doing much harm at all. And caffeine and alcohol, those definitely remove moisture from your system. And you go ahead, have them, but counteract them with equal size glasses of water, which would add to your 64 ounce that it says that you should have. So that is what I have for you today, and I welcome your questions at this point. Thank you so much, and I hope that this is super helpful. I hope it's not too much, because it was a lot. So I'm going to unshare, and I'm happy to take questions, Jeremy, if they're in, by hand or however. And if there aren't any, that's fine too.
Okay, well, Jeremy, do you want to recognize people as they have questions? Or do you want me to do it? Why don't you do it?
How about, well,
Because you can unmute people or whatever.
I can unmute people too. Yes, that's true. So if you could raise a hand.
Okay, we got couple of hands up here.
And I need to grant access to the handout. Thank you. I wondered about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the hands I'm seeing
Louise
and Stephen.
Yes.
Start with Louise. She had her hand up right away at the end.
Louise.
Yes, I have. Always had a question about throat clearing. I'm told that that's very harmful for your voice, but what can you do when you have to clear your voice that would not be harmful?
I clear my voice, but if you're doing it constantly, if you're one of those people, and why is it? Why are you clearing your voice? Is it because you have some reflux or GERD, they call it? Did you eat last night and you have maybe even have a little bit of reflux tends to burn the back of the vocal folds. So eating late at night and then you go lay down all night, that can end up with some reflux. If that's what you're having, quit eating so late at night, so.
Well, the other thing is I do a lot of singing in the morning because I sing for funerals in my church.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it happened in the morning, I find that I need to clear my throat a little more. I do have the other problem, but I'm aware of that, and I'm taking care of that.
I would drink more water in the morning then. I think that helps to flush things out, and I don't know what time you get up to go sing at the funerals, etc.
9:30, 10:45.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I
sometimes,
get up, that's the time of the funeral. I get up at 7 o'clock.
yeah, it's just still morning, you know.
Right,
So
right.
that, but you might just try drinking more too.
Okay, thank
And,
you.
and I think one
Stephen.
of the things that also can help is you can clear your vocal folds without banging them together. Simply close them a little bit and breathe through them hard. Like so,
You can make a little, do a mini one.
so that you're not vibrating them.
Okay.
That's where you get into trouble, is the vibration.
That's
Okay,
great, Jeremy. Thank you.
thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, I guess we're all on the same page here with this. I'm just trying to figure out a way to remain phlegm-free, aside from just staying hydrated more.
Well, we go through 1.5 liters of fluid a day. I mean, through our bodies. Our bodies do. That means phlegm, snot, spit, you know, and whatever we eat too. And so there, you want to have that going through your body, you know, and that one of the things we have, drinking more water is a great way, or drinking things that don't dehydrate you is a good. I know Dr. Bastian is a great doctor, a laryngologist known worldwide, and he had somebody who, she was 80 and she was really having trouble with the cords, and he says, why don't you do excessive drinking? And she did do that, and it did help, but you can't sustain that level of drinking water that long. I mean, because there's other things that you have to pay for it with. And so, but it is a challenge.
Yeah, I have no problem drinking more water. I was just wondering if there's some magical fix or something more effective than just drinking more water.
And I would say I don't mind having a lifesaver, or, you know, something like that. At least it does help me to have enough. And some people have too much saliva. I don't. But you're talking about at the laryngeal level, and if it's at the laryngeal level and you're feeling it, that's where you also need to hydrate about an hour before you're going to sing.
Well, I usually drink tea. I tried drinking tea and lemon with ginger and lemon tea, and maybe gargling with warm salt water before I go to bed, the night before I know I'm going to sing. So especially in the morning, it's you know, it hasn't cleared up yet, and it's too bad because that's when I have to sing, especially in church from the choir. And I would feel a lot better if I could find some way to get that phlegm cleared even in the morning. You know.
Yeah.
I take calls.
Well, you might have some reflux going on too.
You know, those cough drops, those Hall's cough drops, the menthol, that does something, but it doesn't get rid of it really.
Well, I shouldn't say this, but my go-to is a large Diet Coke from McDonald's. So, okay, sorry, that is not. You should not share that with all 70 of you.
Okay, Polly had a question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, hi. I just wondered, I was having a lot of vocal issues for various reasons, between a bad cold and I think I have the reflux also. I've just recently kind of come to that realization in the last couple of weeks. But I bought the vocal mist machine.
Oh, you like it?
I have not tried it yet. I've been very busy, which I guess is good, but I just really haven't had the time to try it. I just wondered what you thought of it, or if you have it, or whatever.
Yeah, I use it when I have allergies. It's because when I get really, really swollen up in my sinuses, and I did find it helped me during those times.
Karen, can you explain what that is? Because some of us don't know what that is.
It's a nebulizer sort of, but it's for the I don't remember.
Yes.
You know, I don't remember. Did you put it in?
You put it over
my mouth and my nose.
Yeah, you put it over your mouth, just like sort of like a nebulizer. If anybody's ever had a breathing treatment, for whatever reason, it kind of just goes around over there. But it's a small machine, and they give you it's a mister that you inhale. And
Real
it
fine
goes into
mist.
your vocal cords. A fine mist, a very fine mist, exactly.
Another secret I have is that I use a CPAP machine. And ever since I started using that, I haven't had sinus problems as much at all, because I always have to put the distilled water in at night. And I just bought a traveling one so that it's not very big. So
Interesting.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Charmaine had a question. You there you
Yes,
go.
actually, I would like to share something, that we're all talking about phlegm and reflux, all these problems I go through a lot and regularly. Um, I found what helped me a lot is steaming. Either I go to the gym and I use the steam room for 5-10 minutes, or just at home. I have a small steamer. Before I sing, I put it around my. It's like a mask. Put in, and I inhale steam. Either just water, hot water, or if I'm feeling, a little bit sick, I put a little eucalyptus oil in there, and it does open my air passages and it clears my phlegm tremendously. It's almost like immediately. I do it just like 10 minutes. Make sure that you don't go out in the cold right away, that you don't have sudden changes of temperature and because that could make you sick. But otherwise, it helps me a lot, the steaming.
You're reminding me, Charmaine, I used to do that too. I had a steamer and it was something I would just put my head down.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had been just using water from the tap. And then some said, no, use distilled water. And then I didn't have a buildup of lime in my body or, so there's that too.
Yeah. Sometimes I put salt, sea salt, or honey.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because everything, whatever you're inhaling, it can benefit you.
Yes, very much so. That's great.
Thank you, dear. Thanks for giving me a chance.
Yeah.